My name is Caleb Ward. I'm 31 years old, a staff sergeant in the United States Army. And 3 days before this story began, I stepped back onto American soil after 10 months overseas. I should have been relieved. Instead, I was driving alone through the dark toward Colton Falls, New York, carrying a duffel bag in the passenger seat, and 10 months' worth of things I still hadn't figured out how to feel. At the end of that road was my childhood home, and 4 months earlier, my mother had died inside a hospital while I was thousands of miles away. I never made it back in time. Not for the hospital, not for her last words, not even for the funeral. By the time I finally turned onto Birch Hollow Road, it was almost midnight. The town looked exactly the way I remembered it. One gas station, one diner, dark storefronts, porch lights glowing behind bare trees. But my mother's house looked different. Dead, no porch light, no lamp behind the curtains, no car in the driveway, exactly how an empty house was supposed to look. I parked, sat behind the wheel for a few seconds, and stared at the front door. I had faced things overseas that should have been harder than walking into that house. Somehow, they weren't. I grabbed my duffel and climbed the porch steps. The brass key still worked. Same key I'd carried since I was 12. I turned it slowly, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Dust, old wood. And underneath it, faint enough that I almost imagined it, my mother's lavender hand soap. I closed the door behind me. The house was freezing. I reached for the light switch. Nothing, then I remembered. Nobody had paid the electric bill. Why would they? Nobody had been living there. I stood in the hallway for a moment, letting my eyes adjust. That was when I saw it. Light. A thin yellow glow beneath the kitchen door at the far end of the hall. I stopped moving. Every instinct I'd developed over the last decade came online at once. The house was supposed to be empty. I knew that. My uncle had checked it after the funeral. The locks had been changed on the back entrance. Nobody had permission to be there, yet somebody was standing in my mother's kitchen. I listened. A drawer slid shut. Something tapped against wood. Then silence. I lowered my duffel to the floor, slowly, quietly, and started down the hall. People imagine soldiers are fearless. That's not true. Training doesn't remove fear. It teaches your body what to do before fear gets a vote. My steps went silent. My breathing slowed. My attention narrowed to the kitchen door. I reached it, put one hand against the frame, then pushed it open. A woman shot out of the chair beside the table. The candle flame between us nearly disappeared. Her hand grabbed a small kitchen knife from the cutting board. And for 1 second, neither of us moved. She looked terrified, not startled. Terrified, there's a difference. Don't move. The words came out harder than I intended. Her grip tightened. Her knuckles turned white. But she wasn't looking directly at me. She was looking past me. At the hallway, at the front door, at the fastest possible way out. That told me more than the knife did. I lowered my hand slightly. I'm not going to hurt you. She said nothing. This is my house. Something changed in her expression. Barely, but enough. I continued. I just came home. I need you to put the knife down and tell me who you are. Her eyes finally met mine. Then, very carefully, she placed the knife back on the cutting board. Not dropped. Placed, like she needed control over even that. The candle moved across her face. Brown hair tied into a rough braid, loose strands around her temples, a bruise fading near her jaw, and something else. Something familiar. I just couldn't find where I knew it from. Then she whispered my name. Caleb. My entire body went still. Not because she knew who I was, because of how she said it. Like she had said my name before. Many years ago. I stared at her. She watched my face carefully. Then whatever hope had appeared in her eyes started disappearing. You really don't recognize me? I swallowed. I searched my memory. High school. Neighbors, army families, old girlfriends, people from church. Nothing fit. I'm sorry. Her lips pressed together. Then she nodded once. Josie. The name didn't hit immediately. Josie Hale. Still nothing. Then she added quietly, "Your mom called me Bird," and suddenly I wasn't 31 anymore. I was 18. Standing in the hallway while my mother brought a frightened 16-year-old girl into our house on a rainy Friday night. A social worker had called. There was nowhere else for her to go. My mother didn't ask how long she would stay. She simply made the spare bed. Josie lived with us for 9 months. She barely spoke during the first few weeks, but eventually she started laughing, started helping my mother cook, started leaving little drawings of birds on grocery lists and napkins. That was where the nickname came from. Bird. And then, one afternoon, a placement opened 2 counties away. She left. I enlisted. Life moved. 13 years passed. Now that same girl was standing in front of me in a dark kitchen with a bruise on her face and a knife beside a half-peeled apple. "Your Bird?" One corner of her mouth lifted. For someone trained to recognize trauma, you're pretty slow with faces. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, the only thing my exhausted brain produced was, "You grew up." She gave me a look. "So did you." Fair point. I glanced around the room. 1 candle. A couple cans of soup. A sleeping bag against the wall. My mother's old sweater hanging over a chair. Questions started arriving faster than I could organize them. "How did you get in?" "Your mom showed me where she kept the spare key." "When?" "Years ago." I stared at her. "Years?" She wrapped her arms around herself. "We found each other again about 4 years ago." That stopped me. "My mother?" Josie nodded. I wrote her. "You were talking to my mother for 4 years?" "Yes, and she never told me?" I asked her not to. A sharpness entered my voice before I could stop it. "Why?" Josie flinched. It was tiny. But I saw it. Immediately I hated my tone. I took a breath. "Sorry." She looked away. "I wasn't ready for you to know I'd come back into her life." "Why not?" "Because some things are complicated." That answer irritated me. Mostly because I understood it. I looked toward the candle. "So why are you here?" Her jaw tightened. "My mom has been gone 4 months." "I know. You're sitting in her kitchen in the dark." "I know. You pulled a knife on me, I know. And you keep checking the front door." That finally made her look at me. I softened my voice. "Who are you afraid of?" Silence, then she sat down. Not because she was relaxed. Because I think standing had become too much effort. I took the chair across from her. For several seconds we listened to the candle crackle. Finally she said, "His name is Derek Voss." "Who is he?" "I was going to marry him." Was, not am. That word mattered. "When?" "Spring? And now?" "I left 9 days ago." I watched her hands. Both were clenched in her lap. "Does he know where you are?" "I don't think so." "You don't think so?" Her eyes moved toward the door again. "He's looking." I leaned back. "How bad is it?" She laughed once. No humor in it. "Your mom used to ask better questions." "What would she ask?" Josie looked at me. She'd ask whether I felt safe. I waited. Josie stared at the candle, then whispered, "No." That answered everything I needed for that night. "Okay," her brow furrowed. "Okay what?" "You stay." She blinked. "Caleb, tonight," I pointed toward the hall. "You stay tonight, lock the doors. Sleep. Tomorrow we figure out what comes next." "You don't even know what happened." "No, you haven't seen me in 13 years. "No, you found me holding a knife." That part I noticed. A tiny smile appeared, gone almost immediately. Then she looked down. Why? I thought of my mother, of the spare room, of a frightened 16-year-old girl arriving in the rain. Because apparently my mother already made this decision years ago. Josie looked at me for a long time. Then she nodded. "Okay." That was our first night. Morning made everything clearer. And worse. In daylight, I could see how Josie had actually been living. 3 candle stubs lined the windowsill. A sleeping bag rolled tightly inside the closet. Canned food hidden behind the water heater. 2 bottles of water beside the back door. Shoes positioned facing outward. A backpack already packed. She hadn't moved into the house. She had built a place she could escape from. There's a difference. By 8 in the morning, I was on the phone with the utility company. 4 months of unpaid electric bills. Late fees. Reconnection fee. I paid everything. Josie found me standing beside the fuse box 30 minutes later. You didn't have to do that. I like heat. That's not what I meant. I looked at her. I know. By afternoon, the furnace came alive with a deep mechanical groan. Warm air started pushing through the vents. Josie stood over one like someone watching a miracle. You okay? She nodded. Forgot what this felt like. That sentence stayed with me. The next afternoon, Mrs. Abernathy arrived. She had lived next door longer than I had been alive. 70-something years old. 5 feet tall. Built entirely out of suspicion and neighborhood information. She showed up carrying a casserole. Her eyes moved past me through the screen door. Then back to me. You didn't mention a woman. She's not, she's an old friend. I sighed. Mrs. Abernathy handed me the casserole. Your mother liked her. I looked at her. You remember Josie? Course I do. She leaned toward me. Your mother remembered everybody nobody else bothered remembering. Then she walked away before I could respond. 4 days after coming home, I found the letters. I was searching through my mother's bedroom for the property deed when I opened the cedar chest at the foot of her bed. Inside were several stacks of envelopes. 27 letters. All addressed to Diane Ward. All from Josie Hale. 4 years of them. I should have stopped. I knew that. They weren't mine. But grief does strange things to boundaries. Sometimes you'll read anything if you think there's even a small chance it will make a dead person speak again. So I sat on the floor and started reading. The first letter came from a tiny apartment Josie rented after finishing community college. The next talked about getting hired as a veterinary technician. Another described a terrible first date. Another thanked my mother for driving 6 hours to attend her graduation. That one hurt. Mom had never mentioned it. Then came Derek. At first, Josie sounded happy. Then, less happy. Then careful. My mother noticed before Josie did. In one response, Josie had apparently copied into her next letter. Mom had written, "He sounds like a man who loves you best when you take up less space. Be careful of anyone who needs you smaller so they can feel bigger." I read that sentence 3 times. Then heard movement behind me. Josie stood in the doorway. Her face changed when she saw the letters. I should have told you. I set one down. Probably. She crossed her arms. I didn't think you'd read them. I probably shouldn't have. No, a pause. But you did. Yeah, she entered the room. Are you angry? I don't know yet. That sounds like Diane. That almost broke me. I looked away. Why keep them secret? Her expression changed. Because they were mine. I waited. She continued. Derek eventually knew everything. Where I went. Who I talked to. What I bought. Who texted me. Everything needed an explanation. Her voice dropped. Those letters were the only part of my life he never touched. I looked down at the envelopes. Suddenly they felt invasive in my hands. I'm sorry. Josie sat against the doorframe. She loved you, Caleb, I know. She talked about you constantly. That surprised me. Then why didn't she tell me about you? Because I asked her not to. Why? Josie looked at the floor. Because I remembered being 16. I didn't understand. She gave a tired smile. You were 18. You were leaving. I was a disaster somebody placed in your house. Your mother made me feel like family, but I never knew if you saw me that way. I did. Her eyes lifted. I said it again. I did. She looked like she wanted to believe me. But belief, I was learning, had become expensive for her. The first real sign that Derek had found Colton Falls came from Mrs. Abernathy. She caught me beside the mailbox 2 days later. A man was asking questions at the diner. My stomach tightened. What man? Dark hair. Expensive coat. Dark sedan. Out-of-state plates. I already knew. What was he asking? Looking for his missing fiancé. She made air quotes around missing. Showed Carla a picture. Offered money if anybody had seen her. Did Carla tell him anything? Mrs. Abernathy looked offended. Carla has known your family since Reagan was president. Fair. She told him nothing. Anything else? Mrs. Abernathy's mouth tightened. She said he smiled the whole time. That told me enough. I found Josie behind the house. She was pulling dead vines from my mother's old garden. Josie. Something in my voice made her stop. He's here. She didn't ask who. Only, where, the diner. Her eyes closed. When? Yesterday. Maybe the day before. She slowly put the vine down. That's faster than I wanted. And slower than you expected? She looked at me. Yeah. Then you tell me everything now. Her expression hardened. I told you no. I shook my head. You gave me the version that wouldn't scare me. Silence. I need the version you're afraid will. We went inside. Same table. Different conversation. Derek hadn't begun with violence. He had begun with attention. He texted constantly because he cared. Wanted to know where she was because he worried. Questioned her friends because he could see people taking advantage of her. Handled the money because finances stressed her out. Criticized her job because she deserved something better. Every restriction came disguised as love. Until one day Josie realized she needed permission to spend $40 repairing her own car. She stopped seeing friends. Stopped working at the veterinary clinic she loved. Started helping manage events for Derek's family foundation instead. He controlled the accounts. The house. The schedule. Eventually even the clothes she wore to certain functions. Why didn't you leave sooner? The second I said it, I regretted it. Josie didn't get angry. That was worse. She just looked tired. Because there wasn't one morning where he woke up and became a monster. I said nothing. It happens inch by inch. She touched the fading bruise along her jaw, and eventually you look around and realize you've walked a mile. I stared at the bruise. He did that? She nodded. 3 weeks ago. What happened? I told him I wanted to postpone the wedding. My jaw tightened. He grabbed me. She rolled up her sleeve. There were faint marks near her wrist. I left a little over a week later. Did you report him? Yes. Protective order? Yes, then why is he driving around asking questions? A bitter laugh. Because paper doesn't scare Derek. She explained that his family owned commercial property across 3 counties. Their foundation donated heavily. Their attorneys knew everybody. The original protective order had been weakened almost immediately. He'd already come too close twice. Both times he called it coincidence. Both times officers treated it like a misunderstanding. I sat quietly. Then asked, how did he track you this far? I used my debit card at a gas station. When? First night. You just left? She nodded. I'd been driving 9 hours. That isn't stupidity. I know. No, you don't. She looked at me. You needed fuel. You used a card. That's normal behavior. Normal behavior is a luxury when someone is tracking you. I had no answer for that. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. I missed your mom's funeral too. I looked up. Derek had a charity gala that weekend. Her voice grew smaller. He didn't want me traveling alone. She swallowed. I found out she died from an obituary somebody sent me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Different countries. Different reasons. Same funeral missed. Same goodbye stolen. That was the first moment I stopped thinking of Josie as someone my mother had rescued. She was someone grieving her too. 2 nights later, I noticed Josie using her left hand strangely while lifting a pot. "Give me your wrist." "It's fine, I'm a medic. That doesn't make you automatically right." "No, but the swelling does." She sighed and held her arm out. I examined it beneath the kitchen light. "Old injury. Poorly healed. Ligaments damaged. You sprained this badly, a while ago." "How?" She gave me a look. I already knew. I reached for medical tape. "You'll probably feel it every winter." "Great, but it's stable." I wrapped it carefully. "Support it at night when it aches." She watched my hands. "You're good at this. Taping wrists? Fixing things without making people explain how they broke." My hands paused. Something moved in my chest. I didn't like it. Or maybe I liked it too much. "Job requirement. What's it like being a medic?" "Over there." I should have changed the subject. Instead, I sat down. There was a guy named Nash. Josie waited. He was 23. My fingers turned the tape roll. We got hit. He was injured badly. I stared at the table. I stabilized him. For how long? 11 minutes. The room went very quiet. Extraction got delayed. I swallowed. Then he crashed. Josie didn't say anything. "Good," I continued. "I still replay those 11 minutes. What do you change?" "Everything." My laugh sounded wrong. "Airway, pressure, medication, position, timing." I looked at my hands. I keep thinking maybe one different decision gets him onto that helicopter alive. Josie placed her taped hand over mine. Not dramatic, just there. "I don't trust other people to carry things anymore," I admitted. "Because of Nash? Because if I carry everything myself, nobody else can drop it." She considered that. Then said, "That's going to be a problem." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because I don't think either one of us can carry this alone." The next morning I called Sheriff Tom Callahan. He had known my mother for 30 years. He'd also been the one who tried to get my emergency leave paperwork accelerated when she collapsed. He came over after lunch. Josie told him everything. Unlike the officers she'd dealt with before, Callahan never interrupted. When she finished, he leaned forward. "I can't arrest somebody for asking about you in a public diner." Josie nodded. "But I can circulate his vehicle description." He pulled out a notebook. "I can contact the department that issued the protective order. I can document the diner visit. And if he crosses that 500-foot boundary, I want you calling me immediately." He tore a piece from an old church bulletin sitting on the counter, wrote his personal number, handed it to Josie. "Not dispatch." She looked at him. Me. 3 nights later, headlights swept across my bedroom ceiling. It was after 2. I was awake immediately. The lights moved too slowly. I stepped to the window. Dark sedan. Crawling past the house. It slowed. Stopped. 4 seconds. Maybe 5. Then moved again. Josie was standing behind me before I turned. Was it him? Couldn't see the plate. "Caleb." I looked at her. It wasn't somebody lost. That night changed something between us. Not romance. Not yet. Something quieter. Partnership. She started leaving 2 coffee mugs beside the machine. I started checking every window before bed. One night I walked the property line and heard the porch door open. Josie came outside wearing one of my old field jackets. "You don't have to come." She shoved her hands into the pockets. "You don't have to walk the perimeter every night. Helps me sleep. Then walking with you helps me sleep." So we walked. Cold air. Dead grass. Dark trees. At the edge of the old field, we stopped. "You always this stubborn?" I asked. "Your mother said I learned from you." I laughed. For the first time since coming home, it felt real. 2 mornings later, I woke at 4:40 to the sound of a zipper. Quiet, controlled. I knew that sound. Somebody packing without wanting to be heard. I stepped into the hallway. Josie stood beside the front door. Coat on. Bag over one shoulder, a folded note on the table. Don't. Her hand froze on the knob. Caleb, no, she turned. You don't even know what I'm doing. You're leaving. She looked away. You came home because your mom died. Yes, you're supposed to be grieving. I am. You're supposed to figure out what you're doing next. I'm trying. Instead, you're checking windows because my ex is driving around your house. Her voice started shaking. I cannot be the reason something happens to you. I moved closer. So your solution is to leave alone before sunrise? I can handle myself. I know you can. Then let me go. No, her eyes flashed. You don't get to decide that. You're right. That stopped her. I don't get to decide what you do. I pointed toward the road. But I do get to tell you when your plan is terrible. She almost smiled. Almost. You think walking into the dark so Derek can find you somewhere without Callahan, without neighbors, without anyone who knows the situation makes me safer? She said nothing. You're not protecting me. I'm trying to. You're disappearing. Her eyes filled. I'm tired of being somebody else's problem. That sentence hit harder than anything else. I moved closer but left enough space for her to step away. She didn't. You're not a problem. You say that now. My mother said it 13 years ago. Josie looked at me. She opened this door for you before either of us knew we'd be standing here. I nodded toward her bag. And now I'm choosing to keep it open. Her tears finally slipped free. I don't know how to let somebody help me. Good, she looked confused. Neither do I. A shaky laugh escaped her. I reached for the duffel strap slowly. Maybe we both learn. She released it. I lowered the bag to the floor. Stay, her eyes searched mine. Not because you owe me. I swallowed. Stay because I'm asking you to. She stayed. Derek arrived 2 nights later. He didn't hide. That was what made it frightening. At 9:15, somebody walked up the porch steps and knocked 3 times. Calm, polite, like he had an appointment. Josie froze in the kitchen. I knew immediately. Him? She nodded. I opened the door. Derek Voss stood beneath the porch light in a charcoal overcoat. Expensive shoes, perfect hair, calm eyes. He looked like the kind of man strangers trusted instantly. And for the first time, I understood exactly why Josie had struggled to make people believe her. Dangerous men rarely introduce themselves as dangerous. I'm here for my fiancé. No hello, no introduction. I stayed in the doorway. She's not your fiancé. His eyes moved over me. And you are? The homeowner. I'm not here to speak with you. Then you came to the wrong house. His expression tightened slightly. Josie and I have a private issue to resolve. There's nothing private about a protective order. That removed some of his polish. Only for half a second. Then the smile returned. She's confused. Behind me, I heard Josie's voice. No. Derek looked past my shoulder. Josie stood in the hallway holding her phone. She looked scared. But she didn't look small. I'm not confused. Derek took 1 step toward the doorway. I blocked it. You need to leave. Move no. His jaw hardened. Do you even know what she's told you? Enough. She has a history of emotional instability. Josie flinched. I saw it. So did Derek. And for 1 second I realized something. He liked that reaction. Needed it. I turned slightly. Call Callahan. Josie already had. Derek's eyes changed. Seriously? Josie spoke into the phone. Sheriff Callahan, Derek Voss is at the house. Her voice trembled once. Then steadied. He's been told to leave. Derek stepped forward again. That was his mistake. The moment his shoe crossed the threshold area, I moved. Fast, his arm went behind him. His chest met the porch railing. He cursed. I kept enough pressure to control him, not injure him. Get off me. Stop moving. You have no idea who my family is. That sentence probably works better at fundraisers. Headlights appeared down Birch Hollow Road. Blue lights followed. No siren. Sheriff Callahan arrived in less than 4 minutes. Later, I learned why. He had been patrolling nearby every night since the sedan appeared. Derek was handcuffed on my mother's porch. Josie stood beside me. Silent, Callahan read the order violation. Trespassing, stalking allegations. Prior documented incidents. Derek kept insisting it was a misunderstanding. Callahan didn't argue. He simply opened the cruiser door. Then you can explain the misunderstanding to the judge. The car pulled away. Red taillights shrinking into the darkness. I looked at Josie. Something was different. It took me several seconds to realize what. She wasn't looking at the road. She wasn't checking the doorway. She wasn't measuring escape routes. For once, she was simply standing still. 2 days later, Josie gave a full statement at the sheriff's department. The prosecutor added the stalking charge. The previous protective order violations were formally documented. Once Derek's name appeared in the local paper, his family's tolerance for protecting him seemed to disappear. Money can make many problems quiet. Public embarrassment apparently wasn't one of them. Derek accepted a plea. Josie received a 5-year protection order with actual enforcement behind it. It wasn't a magical ending. She didn't suddenly stop checking locks. She didn't sleep perfectly every night. She didn't wake up one morning completely healed. Real life rarely works that way. But she started getting pieces of herself back. First came the veterinary clinic. They needed a technician. She applied. The owner hired her within a week. Then came the bank account. Her own. Then a phone plan in her name. Then a small rental house 2 streets away. The day she signed the lease, she stared at her signature for nearly 30 seconds. "What?" I asked. She smiled. "Nothing, Josie." She tapped the paper. "I forgot how good it feels seeing your own name on something nobody can take away." I understood that more than she knew. I kept my mother's house. Originally, I thought I would sell it. But grief had changed shape by then. The place no longer felt like a museum. It felt occupied again. Alive, Mrs. Abernathy continued arriving uninvited. Josie continued stealing my coffee. I started working part-time with the county emergency service while deciding whether I wanted to remain active duty. And slowly, I started sleeping longer than 2 hours at a time. Josie helped with that too. Not by trying. Maybe that was why. She never told me to stop thinking about Nash. Never told me I had done everything possible. Never told me to move on. Sometimes she would simply sit on the porch beside me when she noticed I was awake. One night she asked, "You still count the 11 minutes?" I knew exactly what she meant. "Yes, every night?" "Most." She nodded. Then looked toward the trees. "Maybe someday you'll remember the 11 minutes he was alive because you were there." I didn't answer, but that sentence stayed. 10 weeks after the night I found her, I walked into the kitchen on a Saturday morning. Sunlight filled the room. Actual sunlight. No candles. No darkness. The power was on. The furnace hummed. Music played quietly from an old radio. Josie sat at the kitchen table. Same chair. Same side of the room. And there was a knife in her hand. For half a second, the memory of that first night flashed through me. Then I saw the apples. She was making my mother's pie recipe, or attempting to. "You're staring." She kept slicing. "I'm evaluating your knife technique. You tackled a man into a porch railing." "I'm a professional." She smiled. A real smile. No hesitation. No fear hidden behind it. I leaned against the doorway. "Funny." "What?" "The first night I walked into this kitchen, I had no idea who you were." She slid an apple slice across the table. "And now?" I picked it up. "Now I know exactly who's standing here." Her eyes held mine. For once, she didn't glance toward the door. "Good." I took a bite of the apple. She returned to the pie. And while I watched her there in the morning light, I finally understood something about my mother. For months after she died, I believed I had come home too late. Too late for the hospital. Too late for the funeral. Too late for goodbye. But maybe that wasn't the whole truth. Maybe my mother had spent her life leaving pieces of herself inside other people. A meal. A spare bedroom. A letter, a key hidden behind a loose brick. A promise that someone would always have somewhere to go if the world became too dangerous. I thought I had inherited a house. What I had really inherited was an open door. 13 years earlier, my mother had opened that door for a frightened girl nobody else knew what to do with. 4 months after Mom died, that same woman came back through it. And somehow, while I was trying to protect her, she reminded me how to come home too. Some people enter your life like strangers. Then one sentence reminds you they were never strangers at all. Don't you recognize me? That night, I didn't. Now I do.